All right, let's talk about something that happens quietly, behind the scenes. It's this hidden threat that can turn your super smart data team from a strategic partner into, well, basically a vending machine for numbers. It's called appeasement bias. And trust me, it's probably eroding the authority of more analytics teams than we think.
So let's just start with a really direct question. And I want you to be honest with yourself on this one. Is your data team afraid to say no? Do they find themselves bending to every single request, no matter how wild or disruptive, just to keep things peaceful? If that feels a little too real, then you're going to want to stick around for this.
So what is this thing exactly? It's called appeasement bias, and is this fundamental, often subconscious belief that if we just give in to the loudest, most aggressive person in the room, we'll get some peace and quiet. But here's the kicker. It does the exact opposite. It just opens the floodgates for more and more demands. And in the data world, it has a very specific look. It looks like that constant scramble to fulfill some last-minute ad hoc request from a stakeholder. It's that moment where you tweak a core KPI definition just because a senior leader is really pushing for it. The team keeps telling itself, look, if we just do this one thing, everything will calm down. But it never, ever does.
So how can you tell if this is actually happening in your own organization? Let's get into diagnosing the problem. You can think of this as kind of checking for the symptoms of a pretty serious condition.
Okay, let's run through a little diagnostic checklist here. Do your team's carefully thought out rules just kind of evaporate under pressure? Are those so-called urgent one-time exceptions starting to feel like the new normal? Is there a real, almost tangible fear in the air when it comes to pushing back? And maybe the biggest red flag of all, is there just a total vacuum where clear, solid data principles ought to be? If you're nodding along to any of these, yeah, the bias is probably at play.
And this right here really gets to the heart of it. This is the core trade-off, the devil's bargain of appeasement. You are literally trading tomorrow's respect to avoid a difficult conversation today. And sure, it might feel safer in the moment, but what you're really doing is slowly bankrupting your team's authority.
All right, so we've spotted the symptoms. But what happens if you just let it ride? Well, the real damage isn't just about losing a bit of respect. It's a full-on downward spiral for your entire analytics function.
It pretty much always happens in 3 predictable and kind of devastating steps. First, any sense of prioritization just collapses. Your strategic roadmap gets totally hijacked by whoever yells the loudest. The team stops working on what's actually important and starts working on what's urgent to one person. Second, data quality starts to erode because the team is forced to take shortcuts just to keep up. And then finally comes the knockout blow. Your team's credibility is just gone. And this isn't just some abstract theory. This quote from the source material shows you exactly what this looks like in the real world. The result was that the same KPI meant different things across reports. Decisions became incomparable and BI lost credibility across the organization. Just think about that. The entire foundation of making data-driven decisions completely shattered. But look, it does not have to end this way. Recognizing you have a problem is the first step, right? And the good news is there's a really clear path to fixing it. So let's talk about the solution. The answer is to build a framework for authority, and it really rests on 4 main pillars. First up, you have to establish rock-solid, clearly defined KPIs that don't just change on a whim. Second, you've got to create a transparent prioritization process so that everybody, and I mean everybody, understands the why behind what the team is working on. Third, and this is absolutely crucial, you must get your leadership support to set and enforce these boundaries. And finally, you ground every single data decision you make in principles, not in pressure. And let's be super clear about the goal here. This isn't about stamping out all conflict. Healthy debate over data? That's a good thing. No, this is about having the right kinds of arguments. Arguments that are managed with clear, firm principles that everyone has agreed to and respects. It's about choosing principled, healthy conflict over a fragile, unhealthy peace. Which brings us to this one line that just perfectly sums up this whole issue. Concessions may buy silence, but they never buy respect. Just let that sink in for a minute. Silence is not the same thing as respect. And a data team without respect really has no value. So I'll leave you with this one question to take back to your team. What is the one principle your team will defend no matter what? Maybe it's data quality. Maybe it's methodological consistency. It can be anything, but you have to pick one. Because answering that question, that's the very first step to rebuilding your team's authority and finally becoming the strategic partner you were always meant to be.